moving super fast and absolutely annihilates me, even faster than like the first boss that killed me. So I'm like, oh my god, okay, I should probably not be attacking NPCs.
Hi everyone! Welcome to the Metacast Roundtable by Naavik. And today, I keep talking about the sun. The sun's back out again, so I'm quite happy. And today I'm joined with David Amor, CEO of Playmint. You may know him by creating the loot first game called The Crypt. Also joined by Kumar, co-founder of Naavik, and Matt Dion, who was on here last week again, a senior product manager at EA Mobile. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Nice to be here. Thank you for the intro.
Hello.
You know, Matt stepped in at the last minute. I mean, he just jumped in. Somebody fell out and said, can't do it for family reasons. Matt, within 5 minutes, is here. So unprepared, but just threw himself into it. I'm impressed by that, Matt. Well
Definitely.
done.
Happy to be here. Happy to help out.
Episode saver.
Hero. Yeah, what a hero. Today, I'm pretty excited about the topics. I used to work in machine learning in my past. And the first topic we're going to talk about is how can we apply AI to games? And then we're going to talk about Genshin Impact's user-generated content, which is a live ops event. And we're also talking about 4-day work weeks in games, whether it's possible to happen across the world, if we think it's a good idea. So yeah, it would be nice to dive into that. Just before we move on, just want to say happy birthday to Supercell's Clash Royale, 6th anniversary. That's pretty big for
Happy
for
birthday,
a game.
Clash Royale. Man.
Oh, and also, Manu made me buy Elden Ring so that we could briefly discuss it. So, Manu, how are you doing in Elden Ring? Tell us.
Not so good. I've been telling a couple of people the story, but my first session of Elden Ring was really quite a surprise. It's my first Souls game, so I wasn't aware of the difficulty level of these games. So I started playing. Immediately get thrown into the open world, walk a little bit, and then meet my first boss. I'm like, okay, it's the first boss. It's just part of like the intro experience of the game. No problem. Tried to attack it, was trying to like get familiar with the attack sequences and such. Of course, got killed in like two swoops, and then I was like, okay, no problem. This monster like threw me down into some kind of pit, and then I was like, okay, now I'm finally in the tutorial, the real tutorial. So I'm like walking around, killing the skeletons, all super easy, learning my attack sequences. It's all good, and then I get through that and enter the open world again. Beautiful, like absolutely beautiful visuals. And I'm like, okay, this is the Elden Ring experience that I was like kind of waiting, hoping for. and I'm just like standing there enjoying the environment. Walk a couple of steps further, and then I meet this NPC who starts telling me about, I should go over here because there's something interesting over there and blah, 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 blah. Typical NPC talk. But for some reason, I decide to attack this NPC.
Wait, what?
Oh, man.
And then,
Why would you do that? That's not good.
In preparation for the AI applied to games, just trying to see where we're at right now as an industry. So I decided to attack the NPC. And this NPC, like, I attack him once or twice, and then he says, "Are you really sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, yeah. And then I properly attack him. And out of nowhere, this guy like pulls out a bouquet of roses, which is supposed to be his weapon. And it's all like, it has all this blood flowing out from it. And he's moving super fast and absolutely annihilates me, even faster than like the first boss that killed me. So I'm like, oh my God, okay, I should probably not be attacking NPCs. And then I reset the game, of course, reload, and I'm telling myself, well, these NPCs won't remember anyway. AI. And then I walk back to the NPC and he remembers, and I wasn't able to get past this guy for like 3 hours in my first play session.
Manu, what lesson did you learn from that? What lesson did you learn? You'd be nice to NPCs,
I think,
maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely the first lesson. Don't attack the NPCs. But yeah, the other lesson was, now I know what a Souls game is all about. So
I don't know why you would choose to play a game that famously punishes you so relentlessly. The first thing I do with any one of those kind of games, I mean, PlayStation games, let's say, is turning difficulty right down to easy, and that's how I like to play it. So the idea that it starts at super tough seems insane to me, but people seem to like it. I don't know.
I'm on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I love Souls games. I have not yet played Elden Ring, but I've played all the Dark Souls. I'm working on Bloodborne right now. I really, really like it. They don't hold your hand. They don't, feed you tutorial information like, here's where you got to go and here's what you got to do next. Like, figure it out. Use your brain. I love it. It's a real challenge, and I think it's refreshing compared to a lot of the other games out there.
David is saying no.
No.
I'm in between. I have to play it whilst I'm playing something that's nice and fun, just to switch it up. But I had a very different experience to you. But I didn't attack an NPC.
I mean, you played Bloodborne before this,
you're
right?
A good
so
person.
You're trained a little bit. You knew what to expect. So
yeah, I knew a little. But I always choose my character class without looking at guides. So I just I choose what I think looks cool. And then I found out I actually chose the hardest character to play with. So
I think the real question is like, Manu, do you always attack NPCs? Is that like your first move?
I think so. When I was, even when I think back to my Max Payne or Hitman Codename 47 experiences, I did go for the NPCs. And yeah, during those times, it was even different because the NPCs, they just had like such a limited or like sentence range and vocabulary range that it was also funny to just hear their responses. But
it's not a good look, Manu. It's not a good look. It's not.
We're learning
okay.
a lot about you.
I never thought I would be feeling bad for attacking NPCs, but
you should be. There you go. You've learned your lesson.
Well, I think we need a full deep dive on understanding Manu's root motives to attack NPCs. Yeah. This is a really nice segue into talking about AI applied to games, because I think that's something that in your experience of Elden Ring, that the NPC, air quotes, remembered that you had attacked it, and then it changes its behavior towards you for the rest of the game. So the inspiration for this topic came from Inworld AI's raise of $10 million US. And according to the website, the raise was to create brains for virtual characters in immersive realities. And what I understand, their business vision is that virtual worlds require virtual characters that mimic cognitive behavior, so that the world feels rich and feels more realistic, because the virtual characters themselves will be interacting with you and their environment in a more realistic way. And another interesting application that they're pitching is that this would also allow brands to have always available brand agents. For example, I don't know, the Sandbox or Decentraland, you always have someone there that you trust can represent your brand and talk to real life customers in a more realistic way. So I was actually looking at Gran Turismo 7's low poly humans, and they did look a little bit odd. And once I noticed them, I couldn't unsee them. So it does make quite a lot of difference to how native the imagined and creative world can feel. So I was thinking, Manu, do you have any thoughts on the potential of this company, and if you think we'll see more businesses in the same vein of vision popping up?
I think the potential of this company is probably captured in the recent rave party that Decentraland hosted. So they had this rave party, and I mean, it's supposed to be a party, but it was filled. First of all, it was not even. It didn't even have too many real people in the party, but it was also filled with a lot of NPCs that was supposed to make it feel lively. But all these NPCs were doing literally nothing. So if we're moving to a place where, in short, it was the most boring rave party that you one would witness. But yeah, I think the metaverse needs NPCs, and it not just needs like normal NPCs, but it needs smart NPCs, and I think that's kind of the opportunity this company is going for. But but yeah, that said, moving from like today's NPCs to fully smart NPCs that are that are present, that are aware, that emotionally respond, have the right thing to say in the right tone, all these kinds of things. Each one of these aspects is like it's its own very complex machine learning problem, and I think where today's world is in terms of some of this tech, um, um, and some in terms of just the evolution of this tech that can enable these experiences. I think there's a big gap from what we expect from a company like this versus what the tech can fully enable right now. So it'll probably be some ways away where they fully deliver on their promise of inserting a brain into an NPC where you and I feel like this is a real artificial human, but I think, yeah, there could be smaller steps taken to get there. So yeah, but yeah.
My experience with AI in games, and I know you're talking about characters in games, and so maybe I'm widening it a little bit to saying AI in games. I used to work for a company called Bullfrog a long time ago. I remember working on the Dungeon Keeper franchise, and we put a lot of energy into creating an AI experience in the dungeon, and we did, and most people didn't notice it. It just wasn't enough of an impact into the game, and in fact often didn't work. And the things that did work were set pieces that the level designers created, and they just worked a lot better than the AI that was created. And if I look at how much energy we put into it versus what we actually got from it, it was pretty limited. Now that was a while ago, so of course AI has developed on, but even more recent things like Improbable, which is a technology company here in the UK that is a sort of, what would you say, sort of brain for a game, so that the game can live on and the inhabitants of a game can live on even when you're away from the game. Again, I haven't really seen anybody point to a bit of gameplay that it's created, or indeed a game that uses it, that has made that a more enjoyable experience. And so I agree with what Manu's saying, that it still feels like we're a little far away from being able to use this in a way that feels right for gamers. Can you think, Matt, have you seen something that you thought has done this well to date?
I don't think so. I agree with what's been said about this being a little ways off. I know that there are other companies working on it in sort of the blockchain space as well. There's a company called Alethea AI that you can have like conversations with historical figures like like Beethoven or Joan of Arc, and they also have like the same technology applied to NFTs, like a Bored Ape or something. So that's one company that's working on it. There's another one called Altered State Machine that's doing something kind of interesting where they have like NFT brains that learn through different games that you're playing. But just to take a step back, like there's always going to be this kind of uncanny valley, right, where like humans are just not going to accept these AIs as like a full immersive experience. At least we're not there yet. And you see that even if you just like talk to chat agents in customer service. And this is adding the visual component on top of it as well, which is another layer of complexity. So I think that it's very future looking, and there's probably a lot of challenges to solve on the way.
One interesting point about the Uncanny Valley is, the Uncanny Valley was hypothesized, maybe that's the right word, in 1970 by this computer scientist. But his hypothesis also was that the closer something robotic looks to a human, the more its acceptance would actually, the more the human would actually accept it as another real being. But there's a certain point until which, you then hit the Uncanny Valley where it starts to feel a little bit weird because it's a little bit too realistic. But then if you cross that, then you're safe again. But there was a follow-up study done to the Uncanny Valley later, which was, it's actually, you just have to choose one side of being of where you want to live on this Uncanny Valley. So the more important thing is to be consistent with which side you live on with this Uncanny Valley. So if your characters are consistently unrealistic, you're good. But if they're consistently realistic, then you should deliver on that promise every minute.
I give you an example of that on menu, which is, remember the Mii's in the Wii system, which was they're in known danger of straying into the Uncanny Valley, where they were just representations of people. And that was great. Yeah. I felt like all my friends were there. I didn't need to see their carefully realized faces. Now, I guess if you're making Gran Turismo, you don't want a bunch of Mii's up there and not on the bleachers. So I recognize that it wouldn't work for everything. But there's different ways of approaching that, I suppose, from an art style point of view. I recognize the need for, if you're building a game like Gran Turismo, a way of building realistic characters with realistic AI and having something that maybe you don't directly get involved with but still fulfill a purpose. So there's probably something that you can do there that would be interesting. And certainly it's an area that will develop over time.
And the reason I brought up this follow-up study is because it's just another way to think about the opportunity this company is going for. So not every AI needs to be realistic. Essentially, they could still be inserting comical brains into NPCs rather than, some super smart, highly educated, well-spoken, kind of a brain into an NPC. So,
Didn't sound like it was either of those people in Decentraland rave the other day.
There were no brains existing in those NPCs.
I wouldn't mind going to such a rave. Everyone's just standing.
Okay.
It would be a little weird.
I think that's what's so interesting about having a third-party company that's fully focused, and this is their vision, this is their mission on trying to create this technology that game developers can use. It's just so difficult to have realistic virtual characters. Because I find that if you try to portray humanity exactly, sometimes it doesn't feel human. You have to find the things that make it feel human that aren't quite human to change that perception. I was wondering, Matt, do you think that having this technology out there could be a little bit like Unreal, where it allows smaller studios to develop more realistic open world and complex games?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the company to know whether they're sort of opening up the tool set to end users. One of the things that I am maybe a little bit less clear on is the use cases. I understand that there can be many, but the article talked about not only games, but enterprise applications and other sorts of metaverse experiences. And I don't know, I'm just not really sure. Maybe I'm just having a hard time visualizing it and understanding what this is really intended to accomplish. It seems like it's, whatever you need an AI for in the metaverse, but we have lots of uses for AI right now that don't have that visual immersion component of the metaverse.
Virtual assistants or even virtual companions.
Yeah. Chatbots.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have something. I don't suppose they would get that level of investment without having something, well, a thesis that was interesting and some technology that would be interesting, right? So obviously we don't get to see that stuff yet. I'm sure there's something cool that's cooking there.
I'm sure that there would be like a, at least for the gaming industry specifically, there probably could be a pretty significant cost saving component with just the introduction of more AI. For example, what if you didn't need voice actors basically to do your voices anymore? There's just a lot of cost saving that could happen by people just write the script out, and in AI you can pick and choose what kind of tone you want. Should it be Beethoven saying it or whatever? And you can also choose whenever you want to kind of generate those sounds, and that's what I kind of meant when I said at the start that there are probably these smaller steps also that this company maybe could take to get there, and each of these steps will just be additive to a potentially large cost saving for production in games, the more AI kind of like permeates. But
I don't think that it makes great gameplay though. I haven't, and it goes back to my point where I can't point to any game that I've played where, well, famously, if I'm playing StarCraft 2, then the AI is famously weak and just not that much fun to play against. And I don't play all games, but I can't think of any where I'm going, I can just play against the AI all day in whatever game it is. So I think
Elden Ring, the first NPC of Elden Ring. I can play all day with that one.
Poor guy. But so I guess you're right. It could be a cost saving if you need to build out a lot of characters. But does that make the game more fun? If I saw examples of like it's got this thing and it's fun and it's all just built from AI, then I'd feel a little bit more confident in that. But I just haven't ever seen anything to date that has been able to be better than, what would you call it, hand built gameplay.
Yeah, I think
maybe it adds depth, like I agree that it doesn't necessarily equate to fun, but in worlds like MMO RPGs or like these big open worlds, maybe it can just add depth where there are all these virtual characters and like, you can talk to them and it might be like a short, uninteresting conversation, but there's like a lot of them that you can have different conversations with, and it just fills out the world and makes it feel more alive.
Yeah, but you're sort of watering down an experience. You just gave an example where you approached a character that's built by AI and it wasn't a very good conversation, so you move on. But it did add depth. I don't know. That just sounds like a worse game to me.
Maybe it's a gimmick. I don't know.
Yeah, I think an example of an AI I was very impressed with was Alien Isolation. I honestly felt that the alien was very intelligent. I was playing at the highest level of difficulty and it was very good. I don't know the depth that went into developing it, but I think it made quite a big difference to my experience. But something that makes me really excited about AI being applied in games is a bit what Manu was describing about this NPC. I really hope there's someone out there that's going to develop a game where the NPC in the world adapts to your playstyle, the choices that you're making, and even changing the dialogue depending. I really want an enemy that knows how to push my buttons. They know what to say to make me feel angry and engaged and motivated into fulfilling my destiny in the game. I don't know. I just think it would be really cool.
It would be cool. How hard can that be?
I actually think like there have been developers who've attempted that vision. I don't think there's nothing memorable though in that space. That would be pretty cool though.
Yeah. So I'm waiting. If you're out there listening, let us know if you're doing this.
That's maybe exactly what this company's doing. Maybe you just described their pitch deck. Do you know what I mean, Maria?
Oh no. Maybe I'll get a $10 million raise in it as well. Do you think that I think other applications I was considering, do you think that AI will become widely used in terms of QA in games? I know that there are some companies out there that are applying some level of AI to help QA, for example, end-to-end a game. It's impossible to have one person end-to-end test a MMORPG, for example. David, do you think that we'll see this growing use case in the industry?
Yeah, I must admit I haven't made those kind of games for a while, and I'm sure it's developed since I last did it. But certainly the kind of testing that was being done, the automatic testing that was being done for games that I was building was a long way from. I mean, it's not a substitute from people playing it, humans playing it, I suppose, but it does do a good job of sort of bounds testing and looking out for memory leaks. And we would just leave these auto testers on overnight and see what state the Xboxes were when we came in the next day. So I don't know if that's AI, it's more sort of scripted, but I think maybe AI is an evolution of that scripted testing. So I think that's wouldn't catch everything, I wouldn't think, but I'm sure that's what's happening now with modern testing on console games, PC games.
I haven't seen a third party selling this service, so I wonder, maybe I've missed it. I wonder if there's a company dedicated to doing this.
Yeah, that was our tech that we built, so it wasn't third party tech, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I was also thinking about potential applications in the Web3 metaverse space, because we have robot advisors nowadays that can invest and disinvest in the investment market. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking maybe we'll see something like that in the Web3 world, where people can optimize the trades that they make on the marketplace, and even companies trying to get cash flow from their tokens. Matt.
Maria, you got to believe that's happening right now.
Yeah, I think so.
It's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say the same
that
thing.
ship is already sailing, I think.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, coming back to like your original vision of having this character that can like really push my buttons. That's how you said it. So. Yeah, I mean, I think even in the broader metaverse, like those characters could potentially exist where you're actually, if the metaverse is supposed to be the place where you can have a full-fledged digital identity, then the need for such characters will probably be pretty high, where you can actually have companionship with these characters, There's, I don't know if you guys have tried this app called Replica, which is basically a virtual companion on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
And and you can chat with it. And like, I think in the first 15 minutes, you can start to feel like some connection is forming, even though it's like a artificial character. If you in the first 15 minutes, you don't feel lonely, in a way, when you're chatting over there.
Manu, did you fall in love with one of these characters? It sounds like you might have done.
Did you attack it? Is the real question.
The attack option was not possible, but and also before falling in love, I just looked to my side. My wife was lying down, so I quit the app.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, check it out.
I'll be careful though.
I think it's pretty good, and probably like just showcases, like what could also exist in a game world as a character.
Very cool.
Yeah. I just found you are correct. I'm behind the time. There's a platform called Whale Analytica that has essentially an AI applied real-time calculation of the value of land within Web3 games. So yeah, I'm not innovating. That's really cool. That's quite exciting to see. Hopefully we'll see more in the next few years. Cool. Well, I think we'll carry on to the next topic, unless you have this bold prediction idea that's going to change the world in terms of AI applied to games. This is your moment.
Not for me. No, I don't have it.
So Genshin Impact, I thought this was really cool. They have a time-limited event running called Divine Ingenuity. And it consists of traversal, this is a difficult word to say in English, traversal challenges that players need to complete a quest event to then unlock being able to create their own challenges that other players can play, and people can be rewarded by playing other players' creations. There's even, someone has already created a Squid Game glass walkway challenge, of course. But I thought this is really interesting. I played Genshin Impact quite a lot, and I was surprised to see a UGC time limited event. Manu, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I've played Genshin Impact quite a bit. We also deconstructed it on the website. But yeah, I eventually did churn. So this was pretty interesting to see. But I have to say I haven't played it. My first thought was, I think MiHoYo is working or thinking about its next technical marvel launch. They do these like technical marvels in terms of their game launches, which kind of fits with their vision. And once I saw this, I was like, I think they're thinking about doing that again. It had so many this feature just had a lot of similarities for me when compared to how they open beta tested the open world feature in Honkai Impact before they did Genshin Impact. And if this is anything similar to that kind of an A/B test, then yeah, maybe there's a new game, a new, transmedia, triple A UGC based cross-platform, game that with an ACG art style for sure. Coming from the HoYoverse. So that was like my first thought. But yeah, the second thought was, oh, awesome. There's also the Squid Game in it. So yeah.
What do you think? Why are they doing it? I don't know the game well enough. I played it a little bit, but I was quite surprised. It didn't seem to be the kind of game that you would expect to see UGC in. Why are they doing it? Is it as a way of dealing with a content treadmill, or just a way of live operating the game, or a push to make it Roblox-esque at some point in the future? I don't know it well enough. You've got a sense of that?
Yeah, I think my take is there's probably like a couple of birds they want to hit with one stone. I think one bird is definitely more on just like the pure UGC upside of this. So being able to recycle existing content and assets to, just increase player lifetime. That I think is definitely something that they're trying to do. But yeah, I think the other probably bigger bird that they're testing, and this is a pure hypothesis, is they're testing whether players, this audience that they have kind of tried to build over time across their entire games portfolio, how does this audience react to UGC based gameplay, which would then kind of set the foundations for what the next product is going to be. And I think that's why it just connects with this whole branding shift to the HoYoverse. First of all, I mean, that communicates some kind of a metaverse play and some kind of a transmedia play with their next product. And then this test would, if this is a test of what that next product could be, it will be another AAA experience with this ACG art style and and a huge UGC component. It just goes back to what their original vision statement is, which is tech otakus save the world, which basically means they consider themselves as these otakus, which are, I forget the definition fully, but it's something about some kind of experts of some kind, I think. But yeah, these otakus using technology to save the world through games, and yeah, that's why Honkai Impact was created the way it was created. That's why Genshin Impact came into the world, which was just a complete technical marvel, something that the industry has never really seen. And I think, the bar is even higher now for themselves with the next one.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because when they announced the brand change, I think the vision of the company was a vast content-driven immersive world. And I think this is exactly what you're saying. It's an experiment, just like they did with Honkai Impact for Genshin Impact. They're experimenting. I'm sure this technology will be reused. It's not throwaway. They'll integrate it into their next game.
And integrate all the tech
I think that's
with Genshin Impact also into the next game. So
yeah. Yeah, and then this made me think about whether this might become commonplace if we think that we'll see more and more games apply UGC to them. For example, I don't know, Matt, do you think we'll see Lost Ark having some sort of UGC element to it?
It depends how you define UGC. They already have those strongholds that you can like customize, your little like island that you can, place different structures and furniture on. But I think many titles will aspire to do something like this, but not everyone can pull it off. I think you kind of need the audience and the scale first. We've seen platforms like Manticore, for example, come out and they're like, you can make whatever you want in this game and it's really easy. Just go make a game. But like they didn't have the audience built up first. And so, I don't know how successful or unsuccessful they've been, but I haven't heard from them in a while. I don't think they've achieved the scale of Genshin Impact. So I think there's kind of a, sort of a chicken and egg where you need the audience first to have the UGC. That said, like, this is definitely a trend at this point. It's part of it is about preserving and reusing content, as David was saying. I think a game like Genshin is hugely reliant on content to keep its live service going. But also it's just about keeping players in your sort of digital theme park for as long as possible. Like we want to provide them with different types of experiences so they stick around and hang out and engage with the different systems. And maybe they monetize, maybe they don't. But you look at like Free Fire has done UGC, Fortnite has done UGC. There are plenty of other games that are kind of these like digital theme parks or playgrounds or metaverses, whatever you want to call them, where they offer UGC modes or elements to keep players engaged and also to like engage with streamers and influencers who then bring in more players to try out their created experience. So I think it's aspirational, but it's definitely a trend at this point.
I'm going to test Manu on something. What sort of DAU do they have on this game? Do you know, or MAU?
No.
I didn't warn you I was going to ask. Oh, don't cheat. Don't look at the computer. You should just know this number.
On video. No problem.
I just wonder what size. I just wonder what size of an audience they have. I'm not saying it's small. It's not a loaded question. I'm just curious as to how it compares with.
I did check Sensor Tower though.
I mean, I can tell you, it's like. Oh. Good.
Oh no, I was just going to say.
Matt, what do you think it is?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I can confirm it's like in the top 10 from a revenue standpoint, according to Sensor Tower. Like they published their monthly top mobile games, and it was like number 5 last month, something like that, worldwide.
It's still big then. Okay.
Yeah.
Professor David throwing a spanner in the works here with some wild Pokemon questions.
I did check Sensor Tower though before like hopping on, just to see if this feature had any kind of a revenue impact, because when they did the open world feature launch in Honkai Impact, then that was the highest revenue spike that game saw until that point. And that of course like further justified creating Genshin Impact and investing into it. And so I was wondering, like, did they see kind of a similar revenue impact here? But there was nothing. And since I haven't played with this feature, if you guys have checked it out, like, did you see any kind of a monetization hooks in the feature?
I mean, I just looked it up on YouTube. It looked great, but it didn't tell me anything about the monetization, obviously.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't unlocked that adventure level yet, so I didn't get a chance to play it. But I also saw some YouTube videos and read some guides. It didn't seem like there were any. It was just live content to engage with the general mechanics of how they get players to try to accumulate resources, but nothing specific from what I saw.
Genshin Impact DAU between 3 and 4 million, by the way, David.
It's too late. Too late. Too late. You miss your chance.
Oh, David, question
no
back
extra
to
points
you.
From the professor.
To test you. Yeah. Host test professor. I was thinking, how would you prioritize UGC features for the games that you're developing? Is it something that you would make a must-have before launch? How do you feel about it?
No, I mean, it's a real undertaking to do UGC well, to build an editor that anybody can use is almost as big as building a game sometimes. And obviously, well, not obviously, but it is a way of doing it whereby you give the game designers the tools to build the content that you ultimately hand over to consumers. But the internal tools that you build can be a lot more rough around the edges than something you actually release out. And often those tools are built on a platform that isn't the same as the one you're playing at. So there's definitely a chunk of work to build a good set of tools that motivates people to build content. And then you have to have an infrastructure that supports it and ways of ranking it so that you surface the right content for people to play. So it's just it's no question that it adds a lot of value. But not every game, I suppose, is suitable for user-generated content, and it's certainly an undertaking that's probably done right. It's probably comparable to the size of building a game.
Yeah, it just makes me think about the size of the team that Genshin must have in order to be able to develop this feature that's live for less than a month's time in a time-limited event.
I think the total team size has already crossed like 1,000 or something for Genshin.
Right.
No. Oh, wow.
I think so.
Okay. I work in a team of 25 people, and I think that's big.
I mean, that is big for a mobile game, right? So, I mean, I haven't heard of a team bigger than that's the biggest I've heard on a mobile game.
Hold on.
1,000 people. That's insane.
Don't want to be wrong with the professor.
But, I mean, you can see it.
Let me see.
You can also see it. I mean, it's writ large as soon as you start playing that game. It's so lush, so rich, and there's so much to it that at least you can see where it went.
One thought I had on this is that it might be an interesting strategic move in the sense that many really kind of groundbreaking games have come from UGC modes. You think of Dota came from the Warcraft map editor. You think of Auto Chess. You think of PUBG, these games that were spin-offs of mods or user-generated creations. It's an interesting thought from a strategic perspective, like Genshin creates something like this, and maybe something brand new is created and they have sort of the first look at it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see that happen.
I didn't know that Dota came from World of Warcraft map editor. That's really cool.
Warcraft 3, not World of Warcraft.
Oh, sorry. I'm not a Warcraft player. I'm very sorry to all listeners that are into World of Warcraft. Well, I think we'll carry on to the 4-day work weeks, looking at the time. And the idea for this topic came from Blackbird Interactive, which is a game development studio based in Vancouver, Canada. And they announced that they were going to shift full-time to a 4-day working week from April onward. They did a trial where productivity didn't decrease and everything else improved, such as team morale and work quality and just general happiness of people working in a studio. And many other gaming companies are starting to make these announcements. For example, I think Eidos Montreal has already been doing it for a little while. Amor Games and Hutch announced the trial. So I was thinking, David, since you're CEO of a game studio, what do you think are the pros and cons of 4-day working weeks? Do you think it can become global?
Yeah, I think so. It would be sad to think that it couldn't, right? Well, in my experience, there was a period of time let's say 10 years ago, when everybody was crunching like mad, like to get things done. And everybody was doing it, so it felt like the only way that things could be done. And I ran a studio at that time. I said, I'm not going to do that. Life's too short. I've got young kids, and I'm going to finish at 5. I'm going to come in at 9, do 5. I reckon it'll be fine. And if we plan it correctly and don't overcommit to publishers, then we can get a great game done in time. And in fact, the most successful game I've ever done was created in that environment. And it really proved to me, I'm not trying to tell anybody else, but certainly said to me, it turns out that you can't, it's wrong to conflate the two, working until 10 o'clock and ordering pizzas is the way to make a great game. Absolute nonsense, in my experience, right? So I could well believe that letting go of this idea of a 5-day week, which is another arbitrary thing. And if someone tells me, as the studies seem to show, that you don't seem to lose a lot of productivity by doing 4 days, I could well believe that. But, in setting up a company as I did about a year ago, we did talk about it. Ultimately, I wasn't brave enough to do it. And it's awesome in order to attract talent and build a moat around your talent. But equally, particularly since we moved into an area that was new and we had a lot to learn and a lot to get done, I think as a management team, we weren't quite ready to pull the trigger and say, let's do it. But so the setup sounded like it was going to be me saying yes to 4-day weeks, but as I say, not quite brave enough. Not yet, anyway.
Did like the whole remote work aspect also like play its own role in that decision? Because that's also a new ingredient to, the working mix.
Yeah, I think that one of the phrases that I liked over lockdown was measuring on output, not input, right? It doesn't really matter how much you need to get done. Okay, well, how people get to do that shouldn't be important. You want to do the school run, or you want to work go away for a week, but then make up for it. That shouldn't matter if you plan for it and you're getting the work done. And so certainly I see more of a trend of measuring on output now, partly because it's more difficult to measure on input anyway. You don't see when somebody walks through the door anymore. So I think all of those things are being challenged, and I don't think we've seen the final form of the best way to work yet.
That makes sense.
Selfishly, I would love to try this out. I think that there are a lot of operational challenges, as you guys are rightly pointing out. For one, you want to make sure that it's applied evenly or equally to all employees. Like usually when changes get made, it's folks like QA or contractors who end up with the short end of the stick. And you want to make sure it's not like the execs have 4-day weeks and everyone else works 5 days. So just from a cultural and like equality standpoint, it needs to be evenly applied. And then what do you do in those 4 days, right? If you have a problem at your company where it's a culture of meetings all day long, you're in meetings, and nothing gets done. Well, that you have one less day in which to actually do work and not meet. So you need to, I think, be a little bit more protective of your calendar during those 4 days. And then, to Manyu's point earlier, is your company remote or do you have an office? Because if you have an office, then you're paying for it to sit empty an extra day of the week, and maybe that doesn't make sense financially. I don't know. So these are kind of the things that I would want to think through, like the cultural impacts, operational impacts, and financial impacts.
What, Maria? I think you said that that's something that's happening at Hutch. Is that does that work? What's your experience of that?
The trial only starts in June, so I can't say whether it works yet or not. We are preparing.
What is the buzz around the office of this? Are people looking forward to it, or?
Oh, huge excitement! Yeah, I think most people, if not like 99.99%, are really looking forward to it. It just adds flexibility. Even the thought of going to the supermarket in the middle of the day, there's no one there, seems to create a buzz.
Is that what you're going to do with your extra day, Maria? That seems a shame.
I'm going to do podcasts on my extra day.
Yeah, okay. No, I think that in terms of all the quality of life things that you can offer an employee, having a 3-day weekend is pretty high. That's really, if you, on the assumption that you're paying people enough to enjoy their life, then what's the next thing that you can do to offer them that something's really valuable? I also think that, the weekends, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking about my personal life, get clogged up with sort of family and social things. I think if I had a Friday off each week, then I'd really be able to nerd out on things that I really wanted to, hobbies and things that I might not get to do when I'm ordinarily over a weekend. What would you do with your time, Manu? Would it be beat up NPCs? That's
yeah. I mean, if my 4-day work week starts this week, then yeah, Friday is going to be Elden Ring day with NPC number 1. But I think I'll probably just catch up on life mostly. There's just like so much to do, and everything kind of getting chunked into the weekend. It does make it hard. And on top of that, in Germany on Sundays everything is closed, so you can't like go grocery shopping and stuff. So basically your weekend is like one day to get some stuff done in the city.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I was going to say the sad fact is, for me at least, I find making games really fun. So I probably find myself trying to make games on my 5th day, which is slightly ridiculous. But
it's not.
If you enjoy your work,
I'm thinking the same. I love making games, and I can't imagine just having another day doing nothing. When the pandemic started, I thought, so much opportunity. I'm going to do so many things and be productive with my time. And then I watched Netflix.
Yeah.
I think that ended up being kind of a false promise, though, right? Like everyone was like, oh, you have all this extra time because you're not commuting anymore. But I think, at least in my experience, I'm working just as much, if not more. I just like roll out of bed, I go to my computer, it's right there, and I just start working. And maybe that's a me problem, but like people talk about having all this free time during the pandemic, like unless you were laid off or furloughed or something, I don't think that's been my experience. Like I have roughly the same amount of free time.
I would think that I'd certainly believe those studies that suggest that comparable amount of work gets done in a shorter work week. And I'd certainly support the idea of society moving to a 3-day weekend. And I think, and I won't pretend I know a lot about this stuff, but there's less work to do in the world these days, so it doesn't seem necessary to do a 5-day work week either if we're distributing work evenly around society. So I believe that comparable amount of things get done, and it ought to be possible, and that sounds like a good thing to me.
I think my
I think you go.
I was just going to say that there's another company that recently did this. It's called Mighty Kingdom, based out of Australia, and they had like it's a publicly listed company on the Australian Stock Exchange, so relatively large team, and the CEO basically said, if you have like 2 options that kind of yield the same output, but one option just makes everyone happier, then why wouldn't you take that option? And that was kind of the convincing point and the North Star for just finding a way to make it work in the company. That led to, like changing up processes a lot, because the rest of the world does not work on a 4-day week. That also both internal and external processes. It also to Matt's point about meetings, it suddenly made meetings more expensive in your calendar. So people started cutting down their 60-minute meetings into 30-minute meetings, which made them more efficient, which is great. And just looking at my notes, but I think these were probably like the two most important things. And the third one was like this: it wasn't applied also, or the expectation also wasn't to apply it equally across departments. I think because there are probably like some service-based departments like customer support, etc., that cannot really do a 4-day week versus other more like PM or game design that maybe can do it. So there was some calibration there. But again, to Matt's point about, the execs not like taking all the advantage of this. Something that Mighty Kingdom was quite transparent about was any kind of overhead that was caused by this change in the short term, it was absorbed by the leadership team as much as possible versus the rest of the company. And yeah, it's just, I mean, they were just cognizant about these things and successfully made the transition. But yeah, also kind of remains to be seen how long it can continue.
There's an important point that we didn't cover, which is, do you get paid the same?
Yep, you get paid the same.
I'm assuming you
Yep.
get paid the same.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah. Some companies, you have to work the full week hours in 4 days, and then some companies you work just the normal day hours, so you work less hours per week. There are different ways to go about it, and I think that's something that I found very interesting from the results that Blackbird Interactive shared. Because 29% said that they worked 32 hours per week. However, 47% said that they worked 32 to 36 hours. So they didn't see a loss in productivity. However, there were people at the company, a big percentage, that were working more hours than the 4 days. And maybe that's just something that we accept, to have that extra free day. We'll have to work a few more hours here and there. Yeah, I think ways to be seen. I think it's definitely very exciting to see more games companies trying this out, doing trials and trying to find new benefits for their staff.
I do have one other point to add, which is when we were considering it as a team about this time last year, and I remember bringing it up in an investor call and said, oh, yeah, and we're thinking about doing 4 days a week. And they smiled and said, oh, really? But behind the smile, they're going, well, you're doing what? What are you doing with my money? So, I think there's plenty of enlightened venture capital investors. However, I guess that is a consideration if you're setting up your company, that at some point you have to have a conversation that says, hey, we're only going to be working 80% of the time, which is an odd conversation to have when you're taking somebody's money to do something quickly, right? So I think that culturally it's much, much easier to start with that rather than switch from 5 to 4. Any kind of cultural change is hard. But equally, if you're venture funded and you're doing it at the beginning, then you have to make sure you've got an investor that buys into the idea that that's a better way to run a business.
Fair. Yeah, super fair point.
It's probably quite difficult to claw that back too, right? If you find that 4 days is just not working out, and then you decide we want to go back to 5 days, I imagine that the workforce would not be terribly pleased with that.
That's maybe a one-way street, unless you describe it as an experiment.
Yeah, Hutch, it's definitely being shared as it's a trial for 6 months, and that may happen. I do agree it'll be quite difficult because people start managing their lives around working 4 days, and then you have to change it back. We'll have to see. We'll wrap up the episode because we're reaching the 1 hour mark. We are on Discord. You can join the Naavik Discord if you want to share your thoughts on all the topics that we talked about today. Continue the conversation there. And it was lovely to have you all, discovering Manu's interests in NPCs. And we're never letting this go.
David
He's just sticking.
To the professor title.
Yeah. Matt being the hero.
Matt being the hero of the day. And a cast full of characters.
Yeah, nobody noticed my haircut, but that's okay. You can go to YouTube and check it out. Yes, I did use that as a YouTube plug.
Nice.
It was so nice to have you here, and hope to join us in the next episode next week. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.